Coming up on All About Android, Ryan Whitwam joins me and Flo. We talk about how Mobile World Congress might possibly be canceled. I mean, it's in the works. Coronavirus and all that might have a huge effect on it. And we talk about that. Also, Samsung's biggest announcement, at least for the early part of the year, the S20 series, also the Z Flip announcement. Really big news there. Motorola's RAZR might actually be a fold fail. Also, Moto G Power and Moto G Stylus. Ryan had some time with those devices. Your email and a whole lot more next on All About Android. All About Android is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless. Visit LastPass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Hover. Use a domain name that truly represents you and your passion. Visit hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. Hello and welcome to All About Android, episode 459, recorded on Tuesday, February 11th, 2020, your weekly source for latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Florence.
Oh, yeah. Ron cannot join us this evening. Ron has a prior engagement. Victor also cannot join us this evening. Not a prior engagement, just sick, under the weather. So we've got John Astley filling in.
Say that again? John Astley.
Sorry. You know, usually I just say your first name.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
It's good to see you, John. Thank you for hopping in.
That would have been a really good opportunity for you to rickroll us, by the way, because of the way
Florence, I can't do that because you have to understand that we're no strangers to love, okay? So you have to know that you know the rules, but so do I.
Okay.
And you're not going to really get this from any other guy because I just got to tell you guys how I'm feeling. I just got to make you believe. I have to make it say that. I'm never going to give you guys up, all right? I'm never going to let you down. And I'm going to stop right now.
It just keeps going.
Chef's kiss.
I am so... it's not 1 minute into the show, and I am confused beyond all belief.
He was rickrolling us.
I know, and I was confused through the entire thing. Like I didn't know how to right this ship, but I love it just the same. Thank you, John. Joining us and wondering why he's joining us is Ryan Whitwam from Android Police, Wirecutter, Extreme Tech, and so many more. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good. I promise not to rickroll you.
Thank you. See, I thought rickrolling was a thing of the past. But apparently it's a thing.
It's like the one thing that's carried on. Yeah. And it's because of people like me who just keeps perpetuating dead joke.
Yeah. We just keep kicking that dead cow or frog or whatever it is. What is it? You kick the dead.
I hope that guy Rick Astley's still getting paid his dues for
That's
all of
actually
this.
A good question. I don't know with all the rickrolling if he gets any extra. Like if he's like, hey, I struck it rich on the internet. Or if
he made
just
an album recently, I think, within the last year or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
he struck it rich in mentions, which really, for any of us on the internet, is striking it rich. So.
Okay. All right. I just mean for the amount of times and references that his ancient bad song has been played because of the meme, I hope he's getting a little something extra for that, and that it isn't just our fun at his expense. Ryan, it's great to have you here. Thank you for hopping on this evening. Everybody seems to be really busy today, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later as far as why, but it has to do with a little foldable phone by a company named Samsung. That's basically it. So, but we're not going to start there. Oh, no. We're going to talk about some other news right off the top. It's time for the news.
This is Android news. Wait, this is not Victor. What's happening? What's going on?
Oh, okay. That was pretty good. Astley, is it? Astley?
I'll allow it.
Okay, great. All right. That's how I get you back. All right. So this is a little weird. Okay, before we get into this story, Mobile World Congress coming up. Would either of you classify yourselves as like MWC regulars? I mean, I know, Flo, you've been before, right? But you don't normally go regularly, right?
No, not unless someone else is footing the bill.
Okay. When's the last time you went?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And then Ryan,
my last was 2018. I didn't go last year. I'm supposed to go this year, but well, we're about to talk about why that may or may not happen.
So you are supposed to go this year. Obviously, everybody in the technology and gadget phone journalism space usually travels to Barcelona about this time of year for Mobile World Congress. But things are looking a little iffy. It's scheduled February 24th through 27th. Again, in Barcelona, it happens to be timed this time around with the coronavirus outbreak, which, by the way, the World Health Organization has declared a global emergency. A lot of coverage on the coronavirus as a whole. But right now in technology circles, we're hearing it's like every day you wake up to a new, slew of companies that are announcing, hey, we're not going to go to MWC this year. It's just not worth it with the coronavirus. We don't want to take the chance. So there's a lot of companies that are pulling out. And then there's a report by a Spanish publication, El País, I think is how you say that, says GSMA will be meeting to consider suspending Mobile World Congress this year, which, man, that's got to be that's a huge deal if the event gets suspended. A lot of money left on the table, a lot of companies that depend on Mobile World Congress to make deals, to announce products. I mean, the whole gamut.
Barcelona, in
Yes.
its own tourism and its own economy, depends on this show. I mean, this is a big money maker for them coming in. All those Airbnbs, hotels, the folks who drive people around, shuttle drivers. Yeah. It's interesting because it's just another pin that's getting knocked down. This virus is affecting.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is that we hear so much of this about MWC, but maybe not so much about other global shows that are happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe we're just super dialed into the MWC.
I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. I think MWC in particular is of note because there are usually several thousand people who fly directly from mainland China to Barcelona for this show. And I think as of last week, they said they weren't going to allow anybody to attend if they had been in China less than 2 weeks before.
Yep.
So you have to prove that you've been out of China for 14 days or they won't let you into the show at all. And I mean, it's still, it's not like, half of the show is Chinese nationals or anything. It's
right.
like, a couple of thousand. It's like, I think they said like 5 or 6% of attendees are from China. But I mean, they have some people in Barcelona now who are starting to make noise about, if people show up and have the virus, there's like a 30% chance of it spreading. And this is based on very sketchy kind of guesswork, but it's still scaring people. And none of these companies want to, be one of the few who don't pull out and then something happens.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're going to show up anyways. And then, that ended up being the worst decision we've ever made. So, I mean, I guess the questions that I have around Mobile World Congress possibly not having their event, not happening at all. How does this affect the smartphone industry? Kind of like the release schedules, the plan. Do you think if this actually happens, many of these companies just end up doing like some sort of a PR blitz, some video or a press release and call it good? And like, what is the long-term effect that has on the business if they're using Mobile World Congress for some attention or for creating these deals?
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's pretty significant, the potential of that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies aren't significant enough to get everybody to fly to something for, like a hands-on or a pre-brief or some kind of event. Like they just don't have the resources to put that on. So the nice thing about MWC is that you go and you can see, all of these different product announcements from companies that are just, they have their booth space there and they can do like a pre-brief or whatever. If that event doesn't happen, then I think we're just going to see more press releases and like online streamed like announcements. And that's not great for the companies who can't afford to be like Samsung and hold, giant events with like 20 like humongous screens and, in like a giant fancy, event space.
At the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco.
Just throwing that out randomly. Like maybe let's just say the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco. And it turns out Samsung breaking their event away from Mobile World Congress, because I feel like in previous years they've had these events there and kind of timed as like like a day before Mobile World Congress would start. They'd have their event. It was very much integrated into Mobile World Congress. Them not having that event timed with the event this year turns out to be a pretty smart, pretty wise decision, even though they didn't, in all likelihood, they did not shift it for any reason related to the coronavirus. They probably didn't even know that existed at the time that they were scheduling things, but it definitely worked out in their favor.
So you're not implying that Samsung had something to do with the coronavirus. I just want to make sure.
Okay. Well, that's a good question. I'm not comfortable going on record with that in either way, but they certainly stand to benefit from the fact that everybody sees their announcement and maybe not the other announcements that would happen at the event. Now, okay, so then Ryan, you're scheduled to go at this point. Still kind of iffy whether you'll be going or not. Yeah. If they still hold the event, how do you feel about attending?
Well, I'm not overly concerned about being there. If there's still a reason for us to be there, I guess we'll be there. It's kind of up to the event organizers now. If the GSMA decides that they're not having it, then I don't know. I guess we probably wouldn't go. But I mean, I like most people, we already have airfare and lodging set up. So if we don't go, we're losing that money. But if we go for no reason, then we're spending more money to not really go to things.
Yeah, for sure. And Flo, you were mentioning kind of the cost to like tourism and the local economy. 492 million euros generated for the city every year. 14,000 temp jobs, 2,400 companies were set to exhibit this year. So the numbers are large as far as like the effects of this. If it doesn't
a big event
happen.
in Europe. I mean, all of Europe shows up for it too. It's like one of the big reasons to go during this time of year. That's why flights are so expensive during this time of year when no one is actually going to Europe.
I mean, if they end up canceling this, I would imagine that a lot of hotel rooms are going to be canceled the same day, and that's not going to be awesome for the people who rely on tourist income there.
No kidding. But I mean, even as it stands, if they have Mobile World Congress, you got a lot of big hitters who are not going to be there. LG, MediaTek, Intel, Sony. I know more. Cisco, Amazon.
AT&T.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, even if they still have the event, there's a large presence that won't be there. And
it's going to be an unusually empty MWC if they have it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll find the answer to that here pretty soon. I think if they're meeting, like they're going to need to make a decision.
I think it was supposed to be like by Friday. You should know.
Yeah. All right, Flo, you got the next one. Maybe a little less pressing.
Yeah, but it's very interesting for the developers who are tuning into our show. So there's some we've got some Google Play news, which is that Google has paid out over $80 billion USD to Play Store developers. Now, kind of going in order of this piece of news. So first, Hiroshi Lockheimer, who we will bring up again later in the show, announced on Twitter that Google has paid out more than $80 billion since launch in March 2012. So we're talking about since that big rebranding. For those who've been around for a long time, remember Android was rebranded from the Android Marketplace to the Play Store. So Google takes 30% of the cut. So that puts sales at around $114 billion. And now that sounds considerable on its own, but here's kind of the kicker. And I think this is where the conversation between us really starts to happen. Compared to Apple, it's not as much. And now in the headlines, that's going to make people go, see, like people do not make as much money on Android as they do on Apple. Apple had hit the 100 billion milestone in 2018. So while there is more to this, I just want to kind of throw in a little, my sort of opinion on this, which was that when I heard this news and I saw that people were saying, well, Apple made developers more money, I also wanted folks to take into consideration that the Google Play Store is not the only app store available around the world for Android users, that there are other app stores that come into play. I mean, if you live in Russia, you have a different app store that you purchase, from. If you live in China, you have different app stores depending on the manufacturer, the phone that you're using. Other parts of the world have their own app stores. There's carriers around the world that offer their own app stores. So there's more. I know the word that we want to use that's great for headlines is fragmentation, but I think the right choice of words is there's more choice to where you can get your apps. So maybe that's why Google isn't as top tier as Apple, which is a lot more locked down on where you can get apps. I don't know. Before we move on, do you guys want to comment on that? Just because I know I kind of threw a big...
I think that the China angle is particularly important here because Google doesn't operate in China at all. So everybody in China who has an Android phone is getting their apps from some other source. And Android's usage share in Asia is huge. It is significantly beyond Apple, whereas in some countries in the West, Apple and Android are much closer.
Absolutely. So kind of the second piece of news referring to this is that Google shared details of its 2019 security performance for Google Play. So just kind of adding on top of that, hey, we made people a bunch of money, but also here's some security stats. A 98% decrease in apps accessing SMS and call log data after updating its developer policy a year ago to limit apps that can access that data. So, of course, it's very good news. Yeah, improved vetting helped stop over 790,000 policy-violating app submissions before they were even published to the Play Store. So they didn't even make it to users' eyes for them to accidentally install. Also, the Google Play Store required developers list target age range and removed tens of thousands of apps for not doing so or listing that incorrectly, which helps not only kind of get rid of those nefarious apps, but also makes the Google Play Store just a more friendly place, which, in this day and age, you kind of want to do that because people are handing down their devices to their kids. And if something is deemed unsafe and kind of wild west of apps, not exactly a good look for a company that really tries to, show that this is a family. We're a family company.
This is a family establishment.
Yes, exactly. So.
Yeah. I think 98% decrease in apps accessing SMS and call log data. Like that's a pretty good stat right there. The changes that they made in limiting that access, that's the kind of stuff that I feel like really goes a long way for people, especially in this very heightened awareness that people are in right now as far as kind of data security and what's happening to their data, permissions, all that sort of stuff. So that's a really good improvement as far as that's concerned. That was an effective change that they made to their developer policy, and it shows. So, yeah. So, all right, Play Store, you're doing all right since 2012. You've come a long way. Sure.
We gotta stop this Android versus Apple comparison too.
I know.
No, not us. I'm talking. I'm shading other people here, because this is a constant narrative that I see, especially in U.S. media, and it's very frustrating because when you are a user of this platform and you've been a user as long as we have here, like we know what's going on behind the scenes and why this is the way that it is. If you go to an Android app conference, for instance, Android developer conference, you're going to see a lot of different faces there of folks just kind of like pushing their own ad networks. Like maybe they're pushing an ad network that's more geared toward gaming. Maybe they're pushing an ad network that's more geared towards creators. Like there's so many different ways to kind of make money if you have an app or a service on Android, which I'm sure introduces problems, but also it offers like so much more choice for developers. And I think that's something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
So
opportunity.
That's my 2 cents.
Agreed. All right, we got an email from Jamie from England who says, okay, so this was the story that we talked about last week about the artist who loaded up 99 phones and put them in a wagon and, you know, messed with Google Maps. And I'm sure, Ryan, you read about this as well. Jamie wrote in to say, there's something that doesn't add up about this story. Him having 99 phones with active SIM cards to start with. Those SIM cards would be needed for an active data connection for Google to triangulate against to know where they are geographically. Also, him walking along with 99 phones with him is hardly any different to 99 people walking along in a crowded area, each with their own phone, which would happen all the time around busy areas. The difference between a car and a person is the car would be traveling at car speeds for an amount of time and then slow down. So a phone in that car would be seen by the system as moving at 30 miles per hour and then slowing to 4 miles per hour. So it's clear that a car is now moving slowly, hence a traffic jam. A person would never be moving that fast in the first place, so a crowd of people or an artist with 99 phones would never be mistaken for being a traffic jam. Like I said, something not adding up somewhere. So I guess, so if I'm reading this correctly, Jamie is possibly contemplating like some sort of like misreporting of what actually happened, because I mean, I guess I'm taking the artist for his word in that he put the phones in there and they show kind of the live streaming of the map and how suddenly it comes back as a traffic jam. Is Jamie saying that, no, I think there's some tomfoolery, if that's the right word, going on
Or he pushed the wagon down a hill.
But we didn't see the wagon go down a hill. We saw the wagon travel at wagon speeds.
Berlin is not very hilly, so it's kind of flat.
Yeah.
So,
So, I mean, I think that, so the SIM card angle, I feel like it's possible that he could have gotten 99 active SIM cards. I think I read someplace that he like rented devices from something or someplace.
Yeah, or secondhand devices, something like that.
I mean, or I suppose they could just be all connected to like one or more Wi-Fi hotspots. I don't think they necessarily need to be SIM cards. And I feel like maybe Google's algorithm just isn't as smart about traffic as we would like to think it is.
Yeah.
I think we got a comment from Google about this, and they were very cheeky about it. They feel like it's just kind of a funny thing that they're not really going to have to worry about. And I think that if they thought there was some chicanery going on, they would have said something.
That's kind of how I'm feeling too. They actually went on record to kind of come back to it. Come back at it with like the cheeky response, like you said. And if they had felt something weird was going on, they probably would have investigated it. They probably wouldn't have been so quick to respond to it out in public. So, but I appreciate the tinfoil hat view, Jamie.
Yes, I'll always be skeptical because a lot of things on the internet are lies.
That's true. Google just didn't think about the wagon contingency. Just didn't account for that. And could you blame them? All right, so let's take a break. We'll thank the sponsor, and then we'll get to the good stuff. Not that wasn't good, but let's face it, you're here for certain things, and I think that those things begin with Samsung. We're going to talk about it in a second, but first, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Hover. Hover is a jumping-off point for so many things, but especially for entrepreneurs. They want you to start your business. If you have a business idea, if you are an entrepreneur, they want you to start your business with a domain name that actually showcases who you are, what your business is all about. It's really important. Hover has over 300 domain name extensions to choose from when building your brand online. No matter what you want to build, there just happens to be a domain name waiting for it. You can go on a Hover. You can check out all the domain name options. It's a wormhole that you can jump down. It's so much fun to do because Hover makes it really easy to check. Yeah, see, we're looking 99 phones. There's got to be a domain name that we can create around 99 phones. And sure enough, there are tons. 99phones.com is available. See, this artist could have available for a little bit of a hefty price, I'm going to go ahead and say. But there are other options. You can get it for a lot cheaper if you don't go with the .com. Somebody's obviously sitting on that one. You'll find excellent technical support available to answer any questions you may have. Their support team does not upsell you, which is nice. They only work hard to help you get online. Hover has free WHOIS privacy protection, a clean and easy to navigate UI and user experience, monthly sales on popular top-level domains. And you can see it's not hard to see or understand why Hover is a popular choice for people starting all kinds of businesses, because they make it easy to find the right one. Keeping your domain name separate from hosting gives you the flexibility to choose the right platform for your business, and that is super important as well. Use a domain name that truly represents you and your passion. By visiting hover.com/twit, you're going to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. That's hover.com/twit for 10% off your domain extension for a full year. And we thank Hover for their support of All About Android. All right, it's time for the main event. It's time for some hardware. Let's do it. And Flo, you got the fun one.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day. That's this week, by the way. In
Right.
case,
it is. Reminder.
You know, it's coming up. That's kind of why I went for the pink theme today, because I'm feeling it.
Yep.
So I will be at the movie theater watching the new Sonic the Hedgehog film, because I've been waiting for months for that to come out.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll be
even with the
eagerly
new-
awaiting your review, because I have not been waiting for months for that to come out, even though I loved the game.
Too bad.
I love the
Listen,
game.
I love Jim Carrey. What can I say?
Okay, I'm curious.
But while I'm at the movie theater, others will be gifting their significant others a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip, because that's what's coming out for sale on Friday, February 14th. That's Valentine's
That's
Day.
like right around the corner. This was one of those events where it was like, hey, here's a futuristic thingy, and oh, by the way, it's going to be out in a couple of days. Go get it.
It's going to be out Friday, just in time for you to put in your lover's little Valentine's Day box. Sorry I said lover, but I'm not.
That's okay. That's
so the phone, if you can afford it, is going to cost $1,380, so $1,380 US, which is a lot of money. But as Samsung said, if you're a trendsetter and an early adopter, that's going to be like a drop in the bucket for you.
Give us your money.
Some of the specs include a 6.7-inch glass display that folds, which was rated at 200,000 folds, kind of throwing some shade over the press that Motorola has been getting. We will talk about that in just a little bit. Also includes a hideaway hinge that's spring-loaded for different angles. Samsung spent a lot of time talking about that during the keynote today, and I definitely agree with a bunch of folks that it was much more interesting than the camera teardown, because it's something a little different that we don't usually talk about. There's a cover display, which again brought me back to the early aughts when the phones would flip over and you would get all of your at-a-glance information on the front, like who was calling you and what time it was. It comes in 3 colors: mirror purple, mirror black, and mirror gold. There's also a Tom Brown edition that will be detailed tomorrow and during New York Fashion Week. So that's going to make a splash.
Who's Tom Brown? Who's Tom Brown?
Tom Brown is quickly Googling it.
Yeah, exactly.
I would know this.
Although I realize I'm probably maybe I'm outside of the demographic, but that was an announcement that was kind of lost on me. I was like, I don't know.
He's a men's fashion designer, which is kind of why I don't know who he is, because I don't dress.
Ryan, it sounds like maybe you know.
All I know is that he apparently gave Samsung the idea to put stripes on the phone.
Okay, that's what that's about all I gathered also.
Yeah.
Which I want to know, why do we get a Tom Brown version and not like a pinky pink magic girl version for people like me?
Truth.
Like, come on.
Truth.
Come on. Anyway, there's no 5G option, which is an interesting move, considering that was the other big buzzword at the keynote today.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about that in a second.
Samsung didn't even really talk about the specs.
No.
Presumably
no, they
because,
just showed it.
Yeah, presumably because it's not 5G. It can't have the 865 because Qualcomm will only let you use that if you also have a 5G modem. Some of the previous leaks on this phone said that it would be an 855, which was the flagship chip for last year. So that would still be plenty fast. It just won't have 5G, which at this point I'm not too broken up about. I don't think you need to buy a 5G phone. But a lot of people are going to end up with 5G phones this year, whether they want them or not.
Yes, I have a gripe about that, which is it just feels.
So we can. I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah.
The Z Flip. So like what I'm hearing is that people are impressed with how solid it feels. Like when it's open, it feels like a regular non-foldable phone. In part because it has that foldable glass display. It doesn't feel like a thing that you just unfold. It just feels like a regular phone, and then you fold it up, and it's tiny and it fits your pocket.
I checked in with my pal, Caitlin McGarry, today because she was at the event. And, I had asked her, I was like, does this feel more satisfying to close than the Motorola RAZR? And she said yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's my anecdotal evidence that this is much more satisfying to hang up on a person.
Okay, so the hang up,
the Motorola RAZR.
The hang up rating is high.
Well, if you're going to have
hang up satisfaction rating. Yeah, no, I think it's an important metric when you're talking about a foldable phone and the clamshell design. You want to know how satisfying that hang up is. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people that are going to get that. That's the first thing they're going to do is be like, what's it like? Oh, yeah, that's nice. I know I will.
Yeah.
So let's see here. I feel like I have some thoughts on this. When you have it on the table and it's like propped up like this, I was thinking some developer at some point is going to create, because basically they baked in, and Hiroshi Lockheimer was there to kind of talk a little bit about, the tweaks to Android that would make this Z Flip design work. And of course, they've baked that into Android, that the foldable phone displays can take different apps for different parts of the screen and do it gracefully. And when I see that phone like on a tabletop like this is sitting on the tabletop, and both of the different parts of the display have different things on them, I'm just thinking some developer is going to create like a mini laptop where the bottom is the keyboard and the top is like your terminal and everything.
For American Girl dolls. That's where my mind went. Yeah.
Yeah? That's going to be kind of neat. I don't know how usable it's going to be.
Yeah.
You're not going to be punching out articles on this, Ryan, but maybe.
Probably not. So, LG's dual screen phones, if you have one of those, I actually have one sitting right here. It's ridiculous. But if you have one of these, you can actually configure, like if you're using LG's keyboard, you open it and sit it down like a laptop, and the keyboard just fills one of the screens and you have content on the other one.
Okay.
And that is obviously much larger than the Samsung phone would be, but it's still not really usable.
More novelty than anything. More we did it because you think that you want it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Once you do
it would look really cool in an ad, and people would be like, "Oh, I totally need that," and then they get it and be like, "I actually don't need this."
This is just not quite what I thought it would be. I'm really curious to get my fingers on that display because this is foldable glass. It sounds like, people, reviews or at least early hands-on, people appear to be very smitten, including, of course, David Ruddick from Android Police, who, the headline on his post is, "The Z Flip feels like a regular smartphone, and that's exactly why it's amazing." A lot of other write-ups saying, like, this is actually a pretty spectacular device. Early stages as far as what some early hands-on time is.
I find it so interesting that Samsung apparently is able to do a foldable glass phone right now, but less than a year ago they were like, "Hey, let's release the Galaxy Fold with a plastic screen that causes all kinds of problems."
It is
like,
weird.
Why didn't they just wait to have the glass?
Be first, I guess.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know. It's a great question.
I feel like they got so much negative press
for
the Fold, though. It was such a mess. Like they had to recall review units. It made like mainstream news. It was a bad call.
Sorry.
No, go.
I just want to say they subtly referred to the things that people complained about last year with the Galaxy Fold in the keynote.
They're like
Yeah,
unhinged now. It has this microfiber like
to keep dust and
cone
particles
thing.
out.
Yeah.
Like
that, so that won't end up under your screen. Nudge, nudge.
I mean, on a certain level, I mean, I doubt this was Samsung's intention, but on a certain level, they did the fold. They took some lumps and bumps, literally. You know, they were bruised a little bit, but they came out the other end. They learned a lot of really valuable market research about foldables. It's like when we're entering into this new phase of smartphones where people, you know, there's not a whole lot to write about a black slab anymore. We've kind of been in that zone for a couple of years now, for a decent amount of years now. So we're entering into this new kind of smartphone design world where foldables are actually, you know, something that people are maybe asking for or maybe interested in. So they're going to have to make some mistakes in order to get to the device that does it right. And we've seen a lot of foldables, or the few foldables that we've seen, make a lot of mistakes. Samsung has made their mistakes with the first iteration that maybe not as many people were likely to buy because it folds out to the tablet, the larger form factor. Now they're selling a phone that maybe more people are going to buy because it's still just like a phone, and they've learned their lessons, and maybe now they're making a better phone as a result of it.
I mean, I feel like a phone that folds out into a tablet is a better goal to have overall. The Galaxy Z Flip, while neat, it feels like very much a lifestyle phone. I mean,
Totally.
It's, you know, you open it up and it's like a regular phone. So, you know, it's usable in the ways that we would use a phone, and you fold it up and it's tiny and cute and it fits in your pocket, and that's fun. But that doesn't really, you know, fundamentally change the way we interact with these devices. A phone with like a traditional form factor that you can open up into a tablet and isn't like a buggy, easily broken mess, I feel like that would be a genuinely useful thing. But I mean, the Galaxy Fold clearly was not that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and what is more broadly appealing to people, like the general consumer? I don't know. In my head, I kind of feel like the Z Flip is more broadly appealing to the general consumer than the fold out to a tablet.
It definitely is at this point.
Yeah.
I can see people just being really into this in the same way they're kind of into the Razr when it was unveiled,
right,
because it's neat. I think over time people are going to want more from foldable devices, and this is kind of a way to bridge the gap between flat, you know, non-folding devices and folding ones. And I hope that in the future, you know, we'll be able to get something like the Fold that is actually, you know, usable, good device, and doesn't have like a tiny screen on the outside and isn't like an inch thick.
Yep. Well, maybe this is baby steps towards that. Who the heck knows? I mean, at this point, it's pretty. I'm guessing that the Note event later this year, we're going to have some sort of a fold iteration. I don't know that I've seen any leaks to point to that, but it kind of seems like what Samsung is setting up here is early year premium smartphone announcement is the S series and the Flip series. Later year is the Note series and the Fold series. I don't know. I guess we'll find out as the year
I mean, the
goes on.
Note branding would really lend itself well to something like notebook size and shape that unfolds. That just seems like it would be a really nice, really nice thing.
Yeah, the Note Flip. Could totally see it.
There you go. You just gave them their...
Yeah,
they can,
because
they can
never
like get,
thought of that.
they can work with moleskin or something to make cases so it looks like a little notebook.
Yes, there we go.
I'm giving away all the good marketing.
I know.
Yeah.
You should work for Samsung. Whether you want to, that's another story. Samsung also announced other normal, boring phones by comparison. They started the event with the Z Flip. So they got the exciting, splashy, you know, new thing out of the way. And then they focused on the S20, not the S11. Yes, they have changed the name. We knew that was coming. The S20 family series of phones. It's the S20, S20 Plus, and the S20 Ultra, ranging in price from $1,000, just shy of $1,000. So it used to be that the Note series was the $1,000 phone and the S series was still less expensive. Now the S series starts at $1,000 all the way up to $1,500 if you've maxed out the storage on the S20 Ultra. So, and everywhere in between, you know, the price hits within those marks. All 5G capable. So out of the box, these phones are capable of 5G on all the bands here in the US at least. So Samsung's just basically saying like 5G isn't an option on these devices anymore. You're covered. Whether that matters right now or not, I guess is the open question. But it might matter in a year, and if that's the case, and people are holding onto their phones longer, as Samsung said in their keynote, then that would matter, right? Like, what do you think about the 5G inclusion?
I think it's going to be years before anybody needs to care about 5G.
Years, not just
years,
a year.
Multiple years.
Yeah.
I mean, every implementation of 5G I have used has been either profoundly or somewhat disappointing.
Okay.
And there are just very fundamental issues, especially in the US, that we need to work through before I think 5G is going to be a thing that you care about. And we are severely lacking in mid-band spectrum, which is the best spectrum to use for 5G because it's still fairly fast and can pass through walls. Millimeter wave, which, you know, Verizon's really pushing because you can get multiple gigabits per second. It doesn't go through walls. It doesn't even go through your hand. And it is very frustrating to try and use a millimeter wave phone. And then you have T-Mobile, which has their nationwide 5G, which is low frequency. I think it's 600 megahertz right now. And when I used that, I was getting 5G like all over the place. I could get 5G in my basement here, but it's not really any faster than 4G. And it's supposed to rope in all of the 4G bands and like put it together with a 5G to give you a faster signal. But like, I mean, I saw like a huge variation in the actual speeds in real life. I mean, sometimes it would be a couple hundred megabits and sometimes it would be 10.
And it feels like such a ploy just to. It feels like carriers are just using nomenclature to cell phones.
Yeah,
kind of the way that they did with 4G LTE.
Yeah, and that is exactly why AT&T has been selling phones branded as 5GE for the last year and a half, which they swear up and down every time I've asked them about it that it's not confusing to consumers. But like, I mean, come on. Like, I've spoken to human beings who have purchased AT&T phones and thought they were buying a 5G phone. Like, this is a problem, and AT&T knows it.
Of course they do.
The sales rep is just going to push that really hard because the sales rep is going to try and make that.
The sales reps want to make money.
Yeah.
Like, you can't necessarily blame them, but AT&T is, it's just, the tip of the iceberg. Because now that there's actual 5G out there, everybody wants to push it like that's the next, the next thing you purchase has to have 5G. And Qualcomm, of course, because of their market position, has been able to say, hey, guess what? If you want the new chips, you have to also buy this 5G thing. So this is the year of 5G, whether you are ready for it or not. And I mean, it's going to come with some battery life impacts, which is why the S20s have noticeably larger batteries than last year. And they're also big, heavy phones. I mean, the S20 Ultra, I think, is 6.9 inches. That is a humongous screen.
Wow. That is, I mean, oh man. I'll be curious to see that in person. 4,000 milliamp hour battery on the low end, 5,000 milliamp hour battery on the high end, depending on the model that you get. So definitely large batteries in there. These phones are going to be heavier than you're probably used to. No curve on the displays. So apparently now with the S series, they have stopped the curve.
I am okay with that. That was long overdue.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. Let's see here. Live caption. They have a live caption. Is it Samsung's own version of live caption, or is it Google?
I think it's they partnered with Google.
Okay.
Like they're going to be the first non-Pixel phone to have that.
Got it.
Which is cool. Live caption is really impressive.
Yeah, it really is. I was just using it the other day.
Cool. I would really like somebody other than Google to have call screen, but I feel like that's a Google thing. They're going to keep that to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll certainly see.
Maybe for a good reason, too, just because of all the work that still needs to be done on it, maybe.
Anytime I try and use it, the person on the other end hangs up. So...
that's my experience too. I'm okay with that. That's actually why.
Google
I've had people stay on for like 3 or 4 robo conversations, like, "Hey, I just want to talk to you about this one thing," and I'm like, "I appreciate you holding on, because that's how this is supposed to work."
I am a robot. Google Duo is going to be surfaced in the Dialer app and Samsung's Dialer.
I liked that, by the way. I really appreciated that synergy between Google and Samsung. I think there were a couple of analysts who were tweeting about the fact that like we don't see a lot of this synergy between Google and Samsung because we always think that like Samsung's trying to do its own thing. But I feel like it's time that we really honor the fact that there is Google in the blood of these phones, and that it needs to be needs to be addressed. And the thing that you're going to use is Google Duo, which is integrated into probably, if you have Google smart speakers, like that's the stuff you're using at home.
Yeah.
Not FaceTime.
Even though Samsung refuses to admit anything that started like by the word Android in their announcement. So I thought it was pretty funny that, Hiroshi Lockheimer is able to get on the stage and get Android in there just a bunch of times. So it's Android.
It was good to have him
Even if
there.
Samsung won't say it.
I think that was important. That was a good, from an analyst perspective, I thought that was a good move in terms of just showing that,
Yeah, I think part of it is also that Huawei is in such a position right now that they are not able to interact with Google at all. And until that happened, Huawei was positioned to overtake Samsung. And now Samsung is ascendant again. And they're like, hey, look, we can work with Google.
Look what we can do.
Yeah.
Look what we can do, Huawei. 8K video recording for all of you people with 8K TVs.
Yeah. All of the 5 of you out there.
I know. Yeah.
It's like you can't find any 8K content, so just make your own with this phone.
Yes.
Although I mean, Samsung did the live stream with the S20s, which they thought was a really clever reveal. But I was actually not surprised about that because I was watching this thinking, wow, this doesn't look very good. Is something wrong with my YouTube settings? Like, no, it's just because they're using the phones to film
that's
it.
That's not the look they were going for. Yeah, I didn't think twice about the video quality as I was watching it. But I also wasn't that wowed when they revealed. Maybe I'm jaded.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yes, camera system on the Ultra. I mean, the 20 and the 20 Plus have 12 megapixel main, 64 megapixel secondary, which is used for the 8K video, and 30x digital zoom, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 40 megapixel selfie cam. And then if you want the upgraded, the super powered camera system, you get the Ultra. That has an 108 megapixel main, which is basically 12 megapixel images combining 9 pixels into one. So they're kind of smooshing that down for clarity.
Smooshing.
I know that's not a technical term, but
no, I like the way you said that. Sorry.
Okay. All right, good. I made that up. You can have that, Samsung. 100x space zoom, which is 4x optical. 4 to 10x is like a hybrid optical zoom system, and then 10 to 100x is a digital zoom. And I don't know why anyone has the need for 100x digital zoom.
I mean, the demos that they showed of that during the announcement were not very impressive. It was like they were pretty ugly pictures. And like, yeah, sure, you can see something really far away, but like only kind of. It looks like muddy junk.
Yeah. Like if they had capped it at 50 and just said, hey, it has a 50x zoom and things look pretty decent. Like, that would be wow
if you can zoom to like 20x and it still looks pretty good, that's a significant zoom for a phone. But I mean, the Ultra is the only one that actually has any optical zoom, like an optical magnification in the lens. It has the periscope camera.
Periscope, yeah.
At the bottom, like that's the square one. The other two phones, they're using 64 megapixel sensors because it's basically just like a cropped and zoomed image for the quote unquote telephoto lens. Right. It's not an actual optical zoom. And I mean, I don't know enough about photography to tell you whether or not that will be functionally different, but it is kind of an unusual step for Samsung to take.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we've seen the periscope system be successful in other phones. So I am curious to see that in person and see how that works. But you're right. Like the 100x zoom is just kind of like, okay, I guess you can see that that's a person or that's a landmark or something.
Actually, they printed 100x on the back of the phone, which is really, I don't know, they're really leaning into this.
Like they really want you to zoom in on things that are really far away for some reason. Ultra wide 120-degree camera, time of flight, of course, 40 megapixel selfie cam on that. And that's the S20 series. I've got my reservation on the Ultra, so I'll be getting a ginormous phone here pretty soon.
Wow.
Yeah, a ginormous price tag too, $1,400.
Although they give a pretty good trade-in value for.
Yeah, if you have an older Samsung phone, or like a year-old Samsung phone, you can get a lot of money off.
Yeah, I think I got like $600 off for the S20, the S10.
That's really nice.
Yeah, That makes
Yeah,
it
Google could learn
easier.
a thing or two from
I was
Samsung
just
about
gonna
their trade-in
say that,
values.
yeah.
Well,
that's a
Google
good
could
point,
also
Ryan.
learn a little something about like their phone's holding values, so that there is a trade-in value. Sorry,
Oof,
but it's true.
man.
It's true that their phones
No,
lose
it's
value
true.
really fast.
The truth hurts, you know?
Sorry, Google. I love you, but that's the truth. Okay, so that's Samsung. Oh, and just a real quick here, Galaxy Buds Plus that they announced, an improvement over the wireless Galaxy Buds, $149, 11-hour battery life, 2 different speakers in each ear. So, for whatever that's worth. I don't know. Great. A little bit of an improvement on the Buds.
Yeah, but I don't feel the need to. Still love my first gen ones.
Yeah, they're nice. They are good.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So.
All right, so Samsung did the foldable thing right, or so it seems. Motorola, not so much.
Yeah, Motorola is having a really tough time with the launch of the Razr. It's just one unfortunate headline after the other. So it kind of started with CNET had this folding robot that it was showing off. They were doing a live stream with it. They were really just kind of talking it up on social media, and so people were tuning in. And toward the end of that robot folding test, it was 27,000 cycles 4 hours later at 113 cycles per minute and 2 cycles per second that finally the Razr had just cracked under pressure. And if you're wondering about like the robot, imagine when you go to IKEA and you see that robot that shows you that you can sit in the chair, the $40 chair, like over and over and over again. Like it was basically that idea. So a lot of folks, of course, were trying to kind of draw in, why this might be. So some pointed out rapid cycling like that results in heat, which is why the display kind of starts to peel off a little bit. And that heat does affect small parts over time. We're dealing with electronics here, and heat and cooling is how things bond together and stick together kind of thing. And then Motorola followed with its own video showing a real quote unquote flip test, kind of basically throwing shade at CNET, saying their test was inaccurate. But then, of course, there were reports of creaking and squeaking hinge mechanisms kind of separate from this particular test. There's also a lot of negative press just on the phone in general. One publication said, they refer to it as like a tragedy unfolds. It's just kind of really going dramatic with this. Android Central wrote, as useful as a dull razor blade, which if you've ever shaved with a dull razor blade, that's bad news bears for your skin. Don't do that. Droid Life wrote, the most unpleasant phone I've ever used. So it's just a lot of bad just headlines marring this whole launch. Now, Ryan has also spent some time with the Razr. And so, Ryan, this, I would love to hear your thoughts following all of this interesting press that has come out of the Razr lately.
So the Razr looks like a super interesting phone. And
yes.
I want it to be awesome just because I think, like a lot of people, I had a Razr back in the day, and it would be very fun for there to be a new Razr that was actually, fun to use. But I think it's kind of the same situation that we're talking about with the Z Flip. This is a phone that it comes with some compromises just to give you an experience similar to what you would get with a regular flat phone. So I haven't had the opportunity to use a Razr long enough to tell you if it's going to break. I've used a couple of them, and they were all fine. I was able to use one that apparently has been used daily for 2 months, and it still seemed fine to me. I didn't notice any weird noises with the hinge, and the display still looked normal to me. But I would not be surprised at all if there's a lot of variation in the hardware, just because you have so many more moving parts. And I mean, Motorola's hinge, while it is very impressive from an engineering perspective, it's still a lot that can go wrong. And I feel like, given the way Motorola has handled this launch, they are not confident in this phone. I think all of the reviews that have been out there are people who went and purchased the phone for money. I don't think Motorola is sending any units out for review,
which is suspicious in and of itself, especially for a device that they really seemed to recognize had some steam, had some momentum. They had to delay it. But then at a certain point, it kind of seems like they really wanted to make sure that this got out there before Samsung's foldable, so they were able to kind of get it out like the week before. And now you can see why. Like it's miles apart, even though it costs more than Samsung's foldable.
Yeah, I mean, and it is like it's a Verizon exclusive, and this is a trend with Motorola. They make these devices sort of bespoke for Samsung, and they do that because they know they'll move X units of it, but they're not confident enough in these devices to just sell them outright on multiple carriers or unlocked.
Now the robot, the CNET robot, of course, everybody online watching that. I know when I was watching it, I love the folks at CNET. Of course, I used to work at CNET, so I know Chris Parker and all the rest of the team. Awesome people. But I don't know that the test was quite right for that particular phone. Like you could see sometimes when it was set up, it almost looked like it was kind of off center. And I mean, anything like that going over time on a hinge mechanism is going to kind of wear it down. So it really kind of seemed to me like maybe there was a little bit of accuracy on how this was set up to really demonstrate things. I don't know that it necessarily shows, in my opinion, a weakness of the hinge more than just a weakness of the hinge if you have a robot kind of off center trying to force it open over a period of time. But that's my thought on that.
That's a hard thing. When you're making, there's
hard to get it right.
This RAZR, it's just.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what Ron thinks, because Ron was super excited about this, and he was talking about how he wanted to buy one and everything. I'm guessing he's not going to, but
then look what Samsung did today and how polished that presentation was in comparison to Motorola. Like there is a way to do it that instills confidence, and I think that was a really good point that Ryan made about Motorola kind of not seeming like they had a lot of confidence in this launch. Yep. Like, we all suffer from imposter syndrome from time to time, and you can see it on us when it happens sometimes. And that's one of those situations where Motorola just kind of, you can tell they were shaking in their bones.
Yep.
Shaking
in the bones.
Yeah.
Now,
or shaking in their. Anyway, just trying to think of some smartphone pun, but
that's okay. That's okay. It was a valiant effort. Now, Ryan, you were also at a Motorola event where they showed off a couple of mid-rangers, the Moto G Power and the G Stylus. What did you think of what you saw?
So I think that obviously these are the replacements for the G7 series last year. Yeah. And a phone branded as a G8 launched in certain markets late last year. So these are kind of a different thing. They've dropped the numerical branding. So this is just G Power and G Stylus. They are actually a little bit cheaper than last year's G phone. So it starts at $250 for the Power, which I think is a pretty solid price because you get a slightly better processor than last year. I think they look a lot nicer. Motorola really managed to slim down the displays. They have hole punch cameras up in the top left corner for the front-facing camera. Big batteries. The G Power is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and then the Stylus is smaller, but still 4,000 milliamp hours. So and the reason that is smaller because, as the name tells you, it's got a stylus. It is not as good as the Note stylus. It's not an inductive, like pressure sensitive stylus. It's just capacitive, but it is more precise than using your finger. And a lot of people just like having a stylus for their phone. And so this one just docks inside of the phone. It takes up some of the internal space that you would otherwise be able to fill with battery. But so these phones, they look and feel pretty nice. I mean, they are still like, they are mid-range devices. They don't feel super premium like a Samsung phone. But for $250, $300, I think they could be pretty compelling. I also really appreciate that Motorola revamped their camera array. So unlike past G series phones that were sort of nominally dual camera, where they would have like a main camera and then like a depth sensor that didn't really do anything for you. These actually have three cameras that do different things. So there's the standard camera, there's a macro camera, and then there's an ultra wide on the Power. And then I think the Stylus is the one that has the action camera instead of just a regular ultra wide. So it's sort of like the Motorola One Action, where you hold it vertically, but you get a wide angle like action camera shot, which I think is neat. Yeah, I mean, there's a macro camera. It's a good mix of features for a mid-range phone.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of Motorola continuing to play into what has become its strength in the smartphone world, really kind of leaning into bringing really capable phones to the mid-range. And I mean, the Moto G has just been a huge success for Motorola year after year. Yeah. Some years more than others, but...
Yeah, I mean, they've stumbled a bit in the last few years. I mean, when the first Moto G came out, I think that was one of the first like $250 phones that were actually good. Like that was a big deal back in, I think, like 2013. And for the next few years, they were pretty solid values. And they started to kind of creep a little bit higher up market, and they got more expensive, and I think they weren't very compelling. But this year, I think that Motorola is on the right track. And we'll see when these actually come out if I'm right about that. But I think that these will be better devices than last year's G series phones.
Yeah, and 4,000 milliamp hour battery on the G Stylus. Realizing that they're making room for the Stylus, that's still not that small.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's not bad. That's pretty significant. I mean, especially for it's not like flagship level hardware. It will not use as much power.
No, totally.
Which means it'll last quite a lot longer.
Yeah. We certainly hope. Right on. Cool. Thank you for that. We have no. This is not an email. This is hardware, the other type of wear. Because Flo, you wrote an article for Tom's Guide.
I did. So last week I got into a Twitter discussion with someone about kind of which wearable to get. And I had made a case for the Galaxy Watch Active, which is not something that you see a lot of because people just aren't very impressed with the ecosystem that comes with Tizen, with Samsung's Tizen wearables. But I kind of explained the fact that part of the reason I really like this watch is because of all the data that it was serving me kind of when I really needed it. So my editor reached out to me and was like, hey, do you kind of want to talk about your experience using this watch during your pregnancy? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So we worked on it together, and it's an editorial about my experience using a smartwatch for more than just going to the gym. I think smartwatches in this day and age, they're really marketed towards the fitness centric, the able-bodied. I think they really need to take into consideration that there's more going on in folks' bodies than just going to the gym and wanting to track steps. So what I used the Watch Active for during this time was to actually monitor my heart rate because I ended up having very low blood pressure, which is partially why you haven't seen me in the studio for quite a while, because getting behind the wheel has been kind of hard for me. And Petaluma is about an hour away from where I live. And doing that drive kind of made my husband and my doctor a little nervous to do that constantly when I was feeling vertigo. And so the watch kind of helped inform me of when it was time, for me to kind of rest, to stay home. When I needed to sit down, I was having some really intense heart palpitations at one point. So my heart was just fluctuating between, beats per minute. I've had a really high heart rate just because of how hard it's been working to kind of pump all this blood through me. It turns out that I got a little anemic because that happens to pregnant bodies. And all of this was kind of because of the data that I had accrued through the smartwatch. So really my essay is about the fact that I became a believer in all this data that was being aggregated on my body through the smartwatch. But I also kind of ended it with the thought that I think for smartwatches to really become a life-saving utility, they need to do just a little bit more than track these basic functionalities. I know the Galaxy Active 2 has EKG monitoring. I hope I'm saying that right. This is all off the top of my head. I'm still getting the acronyms down, which is great for, folks who maybe I went into like the Wear store, and I saw that there are apps that work with that particular sensor so that, God forbid, a family member of yours falls, they have the watch on, the watch will sense it, the watch will call emergency services or will call you so you kind of, know what's happening. And I like that these sort of things are introduced, but it made me wonder, like, what if I could have the Samsung Health app know that I was pregnant and kind of adjust the tracking abilities to that? Because as far as the watch and the app knew, my heart was just beating a lot. I was very stressed because Samsung has what is called stress tracking, but it wasn't really stress to the point that, it wasn't stress like anxiety. It was stress as my body was just pumping really hard, and all of this needed to be taken into consideration, and it wasn't. So it was kind of an essay about this time that I spent with this watch. I'm going to continue wearing the watch. I still love it. I'm still in the first generation. I had bought it initially to wear out hiking, and because of its water resistance, it worked really well in the pool. And, that was a low impact exercise that pregnant persons can do. It's, great for cardio, and it works in all those ways. But I'm just thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be great if Samsung Health could just do a little bit more? And I think that is something we should pay attention to when Google kind of revamps Wear OS, folds in that Fitbit, that Fitbit technology, and like what Fitbit can do, especially because like Fitbit's app is a little more sophisticated than like what Samsung Health can do. So I think there's a lot that wearables can do, and I just wanted to make a case for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well laid out. And, I would be curious to see, like you said, Samsung, we're kind of seeing Samsung's evolution with their wearables and doing more. And I think in the Android world, they're really kind of leading the space, it seems like right now, as far as like the real.
They're higher in market share than Wear OS.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fitbit is the highest,
really well with it,
I believe, for Android users after the Apple Watch. Because and with all the stuff that Apple is doing, I just think it's stuff that we really need to take in consideration. Because whenever you see a smartwatch headline, it's always like, here's the best smartwatches for fitness. But what if I just,
what if I just want to live my life?
I mean, and there's so many different things that people do. I mean, what if you're diabetic? You want to track, blood sugar levels, things of that sort.
Absolutely.
What if you're in physical therapy and then your watch keeps telling you, hey, you need to get up and move. And you're like, hey, jerk face, I can't move right now. Can you just
look, talk to my PT. They'll tell you what I need to do.
Yeah. I think kind of the unfortunate truth right now is that all of these things are really would be awesome features. But developing a device that can do those and get certification as a health device from various regulatory bodies is very expensive.
The
which
FDA
is why
has to approve these.
Yes. I mean, Apple for a long time, I think, was the only company even willing to try putting an EKG in a smartwatch. The last I heard, Samsung hadn't been able to turn on that feature in the Watch Active 2 yet.
Yeah,
so,
it has not been improved.
And you can imagine, a company that doesn't have the resources of Apple or Samsung building something like this and then being hung up in regulatory hell for, 6 months. That would be devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the very least, we could have the apps. We can have the apps do a little bit more. I would love for Samsung Health to know that I was pregnant all this time and to kind of adjust the expectations based on like what is happening to a pregnant body during that time. Like, hey, we're noticing your heart rate is really high. Did you talk to your doctor about blood pressure? I haven't been able to track any of this pregnancy through that app. I had to do it through a third-party app, which is fine, but it's not at the same time, because wouldn't it be great to have all that integration? So a lot of work to be done in the wearable space. Some food for thought.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
And now I'm hungry. You just
it is dinner time here in
I know.
West Coast.
Believe me, I know it's dinner time. Why don't we chew on this app news? Hurry up. Sorry, that was weird. Let's see here. Not a whole lot going on in the world of app news. And, I knew we would spend a little bit of extra time in the hardware section. So we'll just go ahead and throw this out here. Sources to 9 to 5 Google are saying that there are internal beta tests happening right now of YouTube Music that includes users' uploaded libraries. That's right. We are marching towards the day. Once again, we're just a little bit closer to YouTube Music becoming the replacement for Google Play Music. Back in 2018, YouTube Music head Jay Fowler said on Twitter, your collection, playlists, and preferences will be preserved and migrated to YouTube Music for a soft landing. I sort of believe you, Jay.
Okay.
I want to see it to believe it. And yeah, just, we talk about this a lot. It seems like a recurring story that maybe we talk about a little too much, but I'm curious to know what you think about this,
it's
Ryan.
it's not a little too much. This is very important because what we're coming across this every single week where people are saying, like diehard Google Play Music users, for instance, are saying like, how am I going to do this move?
How am I going to do this?
I talk with Andy Anatko and I talk about this every single week because he's just like, yeah, well, I got music is very important to him. And he kind of is figuring out like, what am I going to do going forward? And YouTube is something, that it's every time I meet with my, my European cousins, they all use YouTube to get music, which I think is why Google's kind of making this move. But for us, it's like,
it's kind of a generational gap a little bit.
Yeah, cultural, whatever.
Cultural, generational gap. Yeah, something going on there. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so sometime after I was a young person, everybody decided that YouTube is how they would get music, which, I mean, okay. So it totally made sense to me when Google changed the branding to make YouTube front and center. I get that. I don't like the YouTube Music app. I think it is confusing and weird because YouTube's apps are always so different than Google's other things. I would feel a lot better if I knew that I would be able to import all of my library's stuff into YouTube Music. But I mean, I bet that Google really regrets that they ever offered the music upload thing. Like that music locker has just been a huge pain for them because you can't give people something like that and then just take it away again without, people being very upset with you. So I would imagine that is why we are still in this weird transitional period where the Play Music app isn't getting any attention. It just keeps getting older and more busted. And, they haven't had, the time to get everything lined up for the new YouTube Music experience. But I mean, hopefully they just need to do it. I need to rip the Band-Aid off and just, try to make YouTube Music work for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also seeing more and more people being like, you know what, this is kind of the final straw. App, once Google Play Music goes away, I'm jumping to Spotify or whatever, So we'll see if people follow through on that. I should also mention, like Amazon used to have Music Locker, they got rid of that.
Oh yeah.
So it isn't unprecedented that a service could just pull the rug out from under it and say, you know what, we're not doing that anymore.
I would have to do a little bit of research, but my instinct is that Amazon's service was not as popular as Google's.
Yeah, I would agree.
And Google, just by the virtue of being Google, I think it is held to a higher standard for, Android experiences. If they encourage everybody to upload their music and then they decide that's not going to be a thing anymore, people would rightfully be very upset.
Yep. Yes, indeed. I know I would. So, they've made the commitment to moving it over. Let's hope that that when that happens, it's done appropriately. Ron has also mentioned on the show, it's not just a matter of moving over your cloud locker and still having, allowing you to upload that library. It's also about, like you just said, Ryan, preserving your library. And that goes beyond just your cloud locker. Like,
every time I think like, I should just try to use the YouTube Music app, I should try to make it a thing, I get in there and I'm like, okay, this doesn't have any of my stuff in it. Do I want to like meticulously go through and try to recreate what I already have?
No.
Or should I just give up? And I give up every time.
Yep. That's pretty much it right there. And that could make it dead in the water. We'll see. All right. We got an email, Flo.
We got an email. So this one comes from John. By the way, if you want to email us, it's AAA@twit.tv. You can also leave us a voicemail. We like those. It's 347-SHOW AAA. Type it into your dial pad and give us a call. You can still make phone calls in this day and age. Don't forget. So John writes in, it made it into the app arena, but I just wanted to add that as a DeX mode user, it is the only browser other than Samsung Browser that doesn't crash or hang. Chrome itself barely works in DeX mode on my Samsung 10e, and Firefox won't load at all. Just wanted to chime in that it was surprisingly good to pick up Edge for Android. Thanks. I agree. I have heard a lot when Edge was brought into the app arena last week, I believe. You know, a lot of folks on Twitter have said to me, Flo, why are you still using Chrome? It's a hog. And I know, like, why not use something else? And I'm on Windows, so it makes sense that I would just use Edge. It's installed already. And I feel like, who knows, maybe, I don't know if you guys agree, but maybe because of Chromium's ability to kind of work as a back-end browser, that we're just going to see more alternatives using what we already like from Google Chrome.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Toss it to you guys.
Yeah.
So we're talking about so this is the new Edge for Android that's Chromium. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, boy, I really hope that Microsoft can stick with something this time. I mean, they've bounced around so much with their browser stuff. I haven't used the Android version, but the desktop version of the new Edge is actually surprisingly pleasant. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully, it continues to evolve and get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully.
We shall see. Thank you, John, for writing in. AAA@twit.tv. We appreciate it. All right. And with that, it is time for the arena.
So many enter, but only one lives. Android Arena.
You may have gone to twit.to/AAA poll 458 last week. And if you did, you placed your vote and you resulted in the results that we have. Actually, next to the link, this link, John, in the doc, to the right of it is the results thing. Yes. There we go. So if you go there, then we will see the winner is, let's see here, Muviz Edge, Flo, on a roll once again with 38% of the votes there. Second place, of course, Microsoft Edge, 26%. I believe that was Ron, right?
Yes.
Then third place, that was mine. I wasn't sure it was going to get many votes because it's kind of a cheesy game. But Bricks Ball Crusher, 17%. And Canva, I did not expect Canva to be so low. Canva came in fourth at 17%, just behind mine. So, yeah, there we go. Wade County has the results, week 5. Flo, you are in first place. You're stacking your wins.
On a good note.
Yeah, you're stacking your wins right now, and that's important. At 18, guests have 13. Ron is at 12. I am at 10. Dang it. Maybe with Ron out, I might actually pass him this time. But so let's see here. So that means that Flo, you will go last.
Yes.
I will go first. I was scrambling because I realized I hadn't logged into your app, Ryan. So I'm gonna have to do that. But first, I'll show off mine. And my app for today's arena is a news app, and in fact, it is called News, but it's not spelled News News. It's spelled KNEWZ. Yes, because it likes to do news just a little bit differently. And this is basically, it's a news aggregator with a very distinct look to it, look and feel. As you can see, it takes certain kind of blocks, certain themes that are running through the news right now, and it groups them together. This is the New Hampshire primary that's happening right now, and you can see full coverage to list all the stories that are kind of being aggregated in there and related to it. It also gives you a little bit of a summary right here that would allow me to kind of jump right in. Of course, viewing that article from within this very bright yellow interface inside of News. And you can kind of see it's a little bit of a timeline approach. I just like the approach of it. Things just kind of look a little, I don't know. I don't know what the right word is for it. It kind of looks like a newspaper, I suppose, than an app. But you can see there's different sections as well. I've got politics, national, world, business, tech and science, and life. And I can see all the coverage, or if I want to share a specific cluster of news, I can go ahead and do that. I can share that out, no problem there. But I don't know. I like the approach to this. I think it has a nice look and feel to it. You can set up for different notifications. So if you want to be notified as new breaking news items are appearing, you can go in there and do that. If there's a certain story that you're searching for, you can plug that in there and it'll direct you to that. And I think it's pretty nice. I can go ahead and play around with the look and feel of it to make things just a little bit larger for me. But so it is a news aggregator. You might already have one of these in your arsenal, and if you don't, this is definitely one to look at. It just has a nice little visual flair, and kind of gives, I feel like in the aggregation approach, gives a little bit of a well-rounded kind of perspective on a particular story. If you see a story, you might not be locked into a single news source or direction. You might get stories from all around it, so you aren't just pigeonholing yourself into a single way of understanding that story. And that's kind of the approach here. It's called News, KNEWZ, and you should check it out for free. And Ryan, you have a news-related app as well. I'm going to try and get logged in. Why don't you start talking about it? Tell us a little bit about what you found.
Nobody particularly likes looking at ads, but that is the basis of the internet. Most websites you go to are free and supported by ads. And those of us who work at websites, of course, do our best to make sure that you don't get terrible ads, but, sometimes that's out of our control. You might remember a thing a few years ago called Google Contributor. The idea was that you would have a subscription to that, and the sites that you went to that supported Contributor could remove the ads, and they would get paid based on, how often you were going there. Google did not follow through with that, as it does with many other things. So Scroll is a new app / company / website that is aiming to do that. So I think it's like $2.50 a month, like $2.50 a month, and it's supported by a whole bunch of sites. Full disclosure: Android Police is one of the many sites that it supports. So yes, you see, no ads. Once you're logged into this, you can go to any of these supported sites, and the ads are just magically gone. So you don't have to look at any of the ads, and you also get this kind of neat this bar across the bottom that lets you have a story read to you. And I found that it is actually surprisingly pleasing robot voice. There are a lot of sites, like I said, Android Police, also Polygon, Kotaku, AV Club, The Onion, BuzzFeed News, a whole bunch. I don't know if you'll be able to hear.
So let's listen to it.
The average Chromebook. It's incredibly well built and offers a great Chrome OS experience. Now you can buy it for just $349 from Best Buy, a savings of $200.
Oh, lovely.
Nice.
Yes, it's not bad.
Yeah.
And so it keeps track of your reading history on all of these sites. And it's doing that technically, so it knows how much to pay, each site that you're going to. But it can also just be a handy way to see what you've read. It also keeps track of where you were in the article if you're using the reading feature, so you can jump back in later, if you didn't finish something. I think they have some sort of free trial if you go to it. But you should consider that if you want to support people who write news on the internet. I don't get paid anything personally for people using this, so I don't have any particular stake in it. I just think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and we've seen this be tested and used by Google and others, like you said before. So I think any other way to encourage, some of this money going back to the publications, but also giving people like their ad-free experience that people really want.
Yeah, I mean, I really wish that we didn't have to show ads to anybody ever, but that is unfortunately the nature of the internet right now. But not if you use something like this, I guess. I hope that this works and that more sites support it.
Yeah, cool. It's called Scroll, and it does have a free trial. I just signed up for it to showcase it for you, and check it out. It's called Scroll in the Play Store. And Flo, I have your app installed. Tell us about it.
Okay, so those of you who follow me on social media may know that I just can't sleep these days for a multitude of reasons. And one thing that really helps, some people suggest audiobooks, things of the sort. I need something that's kind of that I don't need to pay attention to be able to fall asleep, right? It's like how you can't show a new movie to a kid that you're trying to put to sleep because the kid is going to want to stay up and watch the narrative. You got to put something on that's, they've seen already so they can just pass out. So one thing that I found that really works for me is just to have ambient sound on in the background. And one particular ambient sound that I like, when I go camping, I sleep really well. I love the sound of just sleeping outdoors, right? Can't really do that right now at this time of year. I can't really do that right now anyway, just because of a bunch of stuff going on. So I have an app do it for me. Now, maybe not everybody can find use of this app, but I want to bring it to the arena because not only is this app great, but they have a family of apps for any of your white noise needs. So this app is called Sleep Sounds. And it is a Play Pass app. So if you have the Play Pass, you can get in without ads, which is really nice. And so, excuse me, here's how it works. So Jason, why don't you, I'm not feeling like rain just because we don't have any rain. So let's start with nature.
Nature.
What about the night version? There we go.
Peaceful night.
Let's start there. So go ahead and turn it up if you can. So we'll go back to the screen here. And if you tap on that little crackling fire icon, what you can do is you can adjust the volume of the different sounds. So you have the system volume there that you can use. Maybe you want to bring up the crackling fire. Let's do that. Maybe you don't want to hear so many owls hooting. All right, you X
Go
out
away,
of that.
owls.
Yeah, forget the owls. You can add a new sound right above that. So why don't you go ahead and tap that plus button. Boop. And now we're just going to go by symbols, but it was very much the same thing that you saw on the front page. So why don't you choose maybe some other things? Maybe you want some wolves. Some wolves in the background there. Boop. And sorry, I'm making booping sounds. All right, now we're going to hear wolves. Let's add another sound, just kind of like really bring in the ambiance.
Jet.
All right, we are camping near an airport. Hey, you know what? It's very possible in the Bay Area to be camping near an airport.
Not impossible. Yeah, you're right.
Very possible. All right, so you can do kind of a maximum when you're starting out with a program like this. You can do a maximum of 4, or you can do your own custom one. I haven't quite reached the maximum for that, so I can't speak to that. But go ahead and go back out to that main screen. So just tap away, and there you go. Here's your peaceful night. Now you're listening. Let's say you're like me. I sleep with an earplug in one ear, and I have a Xiaomi Bud that I sleep in the other ear. Just one Bud. And what I'll do is I'll hit that little timer button right next to the pause button, and then I will choose a duration. Usually I'll do like 20 minutes, and it's great. You just put it on. I have the little Bluetooth bud in my ear, turn off the screen, put it down, and then I'm falling asleep. So that's really all there is to it in terms of the UI. It's very simple to use. Some other features it has, you can install to an SD card. So if you're going to be out of the cell area and you still want to have your white noise, you can do that. There are white noise abilities on this. So there's pink noise, white noise, and then I forgot what the other one is. It's a noise I am not familiar with. Airplane sounds, train sounds, rain sounds, cave sounds are really cool. Soothing night sounds. There's an evening beach. There's a vivid creek, which unfortunately I tried that one a lot and I kept getting up to go to the bathroom because that's what happens.
It's really effective. Offline. Look, it's really effective. Okay.
Well, just exactly. So it works offline, which is great. And it's just really simple to use. And TD, if you wouldn't mind going back to that apps page in the Google Play Store, so we can just very quickly, if you want to tap on Sound Sleep underneath the title, and that will take you to the developers page. Now, you will see, when you go scroll down, you'll see this list of other apps. So Sleepa is another one, kind of the same. That is also Google Play Pass. I also recently downloaded Baby Sleep White Noise, so we'll see how that works when baby comes. They basically, their entire suite is available with the Play Pass. So if you need some background noise, just kind of like soothe everybody, you know what? This works. I think the only bummer about this is that I have not been able to cast it. So you can cast it natively from within the OS, but there's no separate casting button. So that's why I've been using it specifically. I've also been using it with a Bluetooth earbud because, you know, my husband's next to me with his own audiobook in his ears. So that kind of thing. So, you know, if you need some white noise to fall asleep, this has worked for me.
Not bad. And a whole catalog.
Tested methodology here.
That is Sleep Sounds. And if you are a Play Pass subscriber, like Flo is, then you'll have access to this immediately. It really sounds like you love Play Pass. Like,
I'm trying to make them, because once they bump me up to $5 a month in November, like I'm finding apps to kind of convince me to stick with it at this point. So that's why
you keep
very
bringing really great apps. Like, you're actually like, I haven't spent a whole lot of time diving in there to see what is available through Play Pass on a regular basis, but I'm always pretty impressed by the catalog. Like, that's pretty nice.
I can't sleep these days, so there's a lot of
So you've got a lot of time for play passing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully Sleep Sounds will help you sleep.
It has been. It has been.
Twit.to.
And it's also good for just ambient noise.
Yeah. Very good for concentration, not just sleep, that sort of stuff. Twit.to/AAA poll 459 is where you can go to vote for your favorite app this week. Is it News, Scroll, or Sleep Sounds? And it looks like John voted for Sleep Sounds. But you'll never see the results, John. We keep it hidden until next week's episode. That's just how we roll.
I have ways.
Oh, okay. Well, apparently he knows how to hack into the account, in which case we need to talk. But good on you, Flo. You got an early vote. Good going. You're going to win this year again, aren't you? You're totally going to win this year again.
We'll see. I will have time to look at apps for a while.
That's true. You're going to have a lot of time to look at apps. That's true. Or you think you will. Whether you do or not, that remains to be seen. But that is it for this week. Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on, man. It was great to have you on tonight, and really appreciate your time walking through tonight's show.
I'm always happy to do it.
Right on. So you're doing a lot of things. You're always writing for so many different places. Where, like, are you working on anything in particular that you want people to know about, or where do you want people to go to kind of follow what you're working on lately?
So just go to Android Police as much as possible, and then also go to Extreme Tech. That's one of the other sites that I write a lot for. And I also do the Android buying guides on the Wirecutters. So if you're looking to buy a new thing, you can go there. If you just want the news, just go to Android Police and Extreme Tech.
Right on. You know, I don't know if people do this anymore, but go into your browser and set your home page for one of those three publications.
Yeah.
Home pages. I feel like people don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so. Or go to Ryan's About Me page on one of those publications so that you always see Ryan's latest articles listed there. That's a good idea. I think that's what everybody should do. All right. Thank you, Ryan. We will have you back soon. Really appreciate your time. Flo, what you doing? What you working on?
I'm finishing up work this week. Writing work.
Okay.
I will be around until this baby shows up. So, but you know,
you got to be excited. I mean, it's literally like
she's due next Thursday. So,
oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Just
I'm excited for you.
Up there. If I disappear, you'll know why.
Yep. Okay. Well, keep me posted, and if you don't keep me posted, I'll understand.
Might be my husband keeping you posted.
All right. All right. I'll take that. I'll accept that. Can't wait to hear the good news, Flo, and hope to see you on next week's episode.
Yes.
We'll see what happens.
Well, Mateo will be here next week, so I'd like to think he was coming, for this particular reason. But.
He might have a present for you. Hold your breath for that. We'll see what it is. All right, so looking forward to that, John. Thank you so much for filling in for Victor.
You did a great job, John.
You did a fantastic job. Oh, except you didn't turn on your microphone.
See, it's all this pressure of trying to fill in Victor's shoes.
Yeah, I know.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I think Bert gave me like started at 9 and then went to a 7. Especially when just 7 once I started trying to rickroll everyone. So
yeah, I'll dock you a few points for the whole rickroll thing.
But I'm the one who prompted him, so I can take some blame from that.
Jason, I'm never going to give you up, okay? Never going to let you down.
Stop. No.
Never going to run around and desert you. I'm just never going to make you cry.
It's my fault.
Never going to say goodbye.
Okay, it's time to say goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye right now. That's what I'm going to do. Twit Audience Survey. It's time for the annual survey. This is where we hear from you. Hopefully, you can let us know what you think about what we're doing. Give us any suggestions, any ideas on what's working, what's not. All of it. None of it is tracked. None of it is targeted or anything like that. It's just a simple form that you fill out, and you help us kind of understand what you like and what you don't. twit.to/survey20 is where you can go to let us know, and we do appreciate your support there. That is it for this week. This show publishes every Tuesday, a little bit later in the evening. John's going to get the show up and published for you. You can subscribe at twit.tv/AAA. That is the show place on the web where you can go. All subscribe links are there, all audio and video feeds, the players. If you want to watch it in the website, if that's how you roll, sure, go for it. There's links to YouTube. It's all there. So twit.tv/AAA is really all you need to know. And that is it for this week's episode. We'll see you next week. And hopefully we'll see Flo too on next week's episode of All About Android. Bye, everybody.